Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in Sophomore English. We are in our MyPerspectives volume number 1. We are now ready to introduce Unit 3. I'm with you on page 258, Extending Freedom's Reach. The question that we will be trying to address in this set of studies is what factors determine who is free and who remains oppressed. Now, I want you to go through the unit goals on 260. I want you to work through the academic vocabulary and the informative text information on 261. And we now turn to page 262 and our launch text. Now, our model is what we call an informative model. We'll be reading a little passage called Born Free, Children, and the Struggle for Human Rights. Read with me on 262 in the box, please. This selection is an example of an informative essay, a type of writing in which the author examines concepts through the careful selection, organization, and analysis of information. This is the type of writing you will develop in the performance-based assessment at the end of this unit. As you read, notice the way the writer provides information about the topic. How are ideas organized, and how do the details support the main points? Please circle the word support. That's what we're looking for. In our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, we sing of America as the land of the free and the home of the brave. Throughout much of our history, though, many groups have struggled to share fully in the nation's promise of freedom and justice. Like other groups who have faced unfair or undignified treatment, young people have also realized that in order to be heard, they might have to make some noise. One incident of children raising their voices to advance their rights occurred in New York City during the Newsies strike of 1899. Newsies were children who sold newspapers on the sidewalks of major cities. In the late 1890s, there were roughly 2,500 newsies in New York City, most between the ages of 6 and 16. Some of you will be shocked when you read that. Wait, you're telling me there were 6-year-old kids that stood on the sidewalk and tried to sell newspapers? That is exactly what we're saying. The shouts of these children calling, "Extra, extra, read all about it," were part of the soundtrack of urban life. In that long ago era, before computers, smartphones, television, even radio, newspapers were the main source of news. The newsies suffered a host of problems. While some lived with their families, many others were orphans, homeless, or both. The United States did not institute laws protecting child workers until 1916. Let's read that again. The United States did not institute laws protecting child workers until 1916, and the newsies were victims of unscrupulous business practices. Circle the word unscrupulous. Maybe some of you don't know this word. In other words, nasty. They often worked, for example, 10 or 12-hour days. Most gave any money they earned to their families or used it to pay the costs of food and shelter for a night. Newsies did not go to school. Mark it. Newsies did not go to school. The newsies' circumstances deteriorated even further during the Spanish-American War of 1898. The public's hunger for news of the war led to increased demand for newspapers. Newsies brought the newspapers from publishers and then sold them to the public. During the war, the price newsies paid for a bundle of 100 papers rose from 50 to 60 cents. I'm on page 263. Once the war ended, readership declined. Most newspaper owners responded by returning the price of a bundle to 50 cents. But the two biggest publishers, Joseph Pulitzer of the New York World and William Randolph Hearst of the New York Journal, refused to lower their prices. In addition, both Pulitzer and Hearst discontinued the practice of buying back unsold papers. Instead, they forced the newsies to absorb the losses. On July 20th, 1899, the newsies took on Pulitzer and Hearst by launching a strike. They refused to sell either newspaper and warned off anyone who tried. They brought traffic to a halt by marching through the streets and gathering at the Brooklyn Bridge. They made signs asking the public not to buy Pulitzer and Hearst newspapers, and they chased off men who were attempting to deliver bundles of papers for distribution. The public showed its support, raining coins down on the strikers from the windows of offices and apartments. What began as a localized strike by about 300 newsies near Manhattan's Wall Street soon spread west to New Jersey, south to Brooklyn, north to the Bronx, and east to Queens. The newspapers that covered the strike found ways to show their disrespect for the newsies. "Dares to tease thousands of us, and we'll win for sure," is how one newspaper mockingly quoted a newsie's reference to the number of strikers. Another newspaper explained that the newsies were striking for their rights, using quotation marks to imply that the children had no rights and that it was quaint for them to suggest they did. The strike lasted 2 weeks. Some newsies were arrested for vandalism. Others were arrested for stealing copies of the Pulitzer Hearst papers. Although some adults reached out to help the newsies, most of the power stayed where it started. Pulitzer and Hearst did not lower the cost of newspaper bundles to the pre-war price, but they did agree to buy back unsold copies from the newsies. It may have been a small victory, but it was more than the newsies would have received if they had not raised their voices. Now go ahead and do the schemata at the bottom of 263 where freedom is the center word. Then on to 264, summarize real quickly what you just read. And finally on 265, to set us up for our prompt later, do a quick write of this question: what does it mean to be free? We will now turn to our Unit 3 texts and try and analyze that question of freedom. Thank you.